Hey everybody, this is Rustin Rose with Metalholic Magazine and Access Entertainment. And we are here today with the legend himself, Mr. Mike Lepond of Silent Assassins and, of course, Symphony X. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really good, man. Happy New Year to you.
Absolutely. The same to you. It's been an extraordinary 365 days we've been through. I just got done posting our top albums of the year, and I was remiss in the fact that last year I didn't find Silent Assassins until after the year was over, so I missed out on it. So I had to mention that on this year's list.
Okay, so at least I got honorable mentions.
So anyway, I promise not to make you share any of your New Year's resolutions or ask you about your top albums for 2015.
Okay, thank you for that.
You have got to be one of the busiest men in music. Where do you find the time and energy for all the projects you have going?
I think what it comes down to is just the passion and love I have for doing it. Yeah, I mean, I do so many projects that it's almost impossible to keep up with everything I do, and it definitely takes up a lot of my time. I have to admit that, but I just love playing, and I love working with different artists and different musicians. It just makes me a better player. And it's just so much fun to play on all these different things. So it's just something I love doing, and I plan to continue doing it.
Well, and it doesn't hurt that you've got such a great degree of respect throughout the industry that, I mean, everybody wants you. I mean, your name's popping up everywhere. The new Veronica Freeman album, Flames of Fury, last year's Mind Maze album, just all over the place, So
yeah, you never know where I'm going to pop up. I'm very blessed and lucky to be able to get a lot of offers from a lot of amazing bands, and a lot of amazing bands that we probably would not usually have heard of, because maybe they're not signed or they're not a popular band, but there's some amazing bands out there, and it's an honor to meet them and play with them.
Absolutely. And before we talk symphonies and assassins, I know you're a longtime Motorhead fan. We lost Lemmy this week. He is one of those icons of rock that transcends the music. If it's not too personal, what sort of impact did he have on you?
Oh, my God. Lemmy had a tremendous impact on me. Basically, the first time I saw Motorhead was a life-changing experience for me. It was in 1984, and they were playing with Merciful Fate and Exciter. Now, me and all my friends, we were big fans of Merciful Fate, and we were all excited to see them. And so they came out and they did a great set. But then Motorhead just came out, and it was just so no nonsense, in your face, and they just blew every band right off the stage. And when I experienced that, I was like, wow, that's what metal should really be. It should just be raw, in your face. And Lemmy, basically, that was what he was all about. It was just all nonsense, in your face metal. And when I write songs, he's always in my heart. That attitude he had, and I'll never forget him. Just one of the biggest influences that anyone has ever had on me.
And you can definitely hear different moments of like Motorhead-ish sort of stuff on your first solo album for Silent Assassins. But I, like you, sort of found my passion for heavy music when I first heard and saw Kiss when I was about 10. I think you were 13. Now, all these years later, there are these young guys coming up, and you're playing on a lot of their albums, who cite you as their influence. Is that sort of surreal for you?
It's definitely surreal, because, people, so many people, they say, well, you're such an influence on me, you're one of the best. And it's weird because I really don't see myself that way at all. So, I mean, I really appreciate it, and any compliment is so well received in my heart, and I never take any of it for granted. But I guess I just think of myself, I think I'm a good bass player and just someone who just loves to play. And I still see myself as a fan, honestly, rather than like the rock star guy. So it definitely takes some getting used to, but you know what? I'm so happy that people see me that way, and hopefully that will continue.
Now, right now, you're between Symphony X tours. I understand you're spending some time in Mr. Romeo's studio again, working on new Silent Assassins material.
Right. Well, yeah, the last Symphony X tour ended in October, and the next one begins in February. So, of course, knowing me, as some people do, I take advantage of that time, and I started working on a second Silent Assassins record, and the drums are actually done already.
Wow.
So at this point, I'm just kind of practicing the rhythm guitar tracks, and my goal is to get the rhythm guitar tracks and the bass done before we leave. So we'll see, hopefully.
Well, from what I've heard about your proclivities in the studio, getting that bass knocked out should be pretty quick for you. But let's, before we talk about the new album a little bit more, let's go back to the beginning, because you've always been a fan of traditional metal, so Silent Assassins makes perfect sense for you. How long were you writing for and putting that debut album together?
Well, Symphony X, in between our albums, usually takes a long time, So what I wanted to do, I've always wanted to put out just like a heavy metal record, just a true heavy metal album. So what I wanted to do started around 2011. I started writing the songs, just bits and pieces, and, some lyrics here and there. And when Symphony X went on the road for our second to last album called Iconoclast, I'd be on the tour bus and I would just write, every day on the tour bus because there was so much downtime.
Right.
So, and then by the time we were done touring, which, we were on and off touring for about 2 years, I had the whole record written, lyrics and music, and I was ready to roll. But yeah, it was something I've always wanted to do because I just love heavy metal. It's my favorite kind of music ever.
There are also some other elements on the debut album. There's a few epic or folk metal elements, some power metal elements. I mean, The Quest is a prime example of some of those first ones there, which is one of my favorite tracks on the album. Can you give us a little backstory on that one?
Sure. And you're right. Besides heavy metal, I'd say around in the early 2000s, I began listening to Blackmore's Night,
Right.
And I really was just blown away by what Richie was doing. He just had this whole medieval sound going. And for years, what I would do is I would listen to his guitar, and I would try to kind of play the same thing but on the bass. And I just began doing that for years. And then I was like, well, I got this song. It's about King Arthur and his quest, as knights and their quest for the Holy Grail. I was like, well, it definitely needs some medieval kind of parts. So I was like, how about I put a real kind of Blackmore's Night style kind of thing in there, kind of like almost like a tribal dancey kind of thing in there. Mm-hmm. And it kind of worked really great. So I just love writing metal and putting these medieval ideas in there. And that's really how that song came together.
Well, and a lot of your stuff, too, is driven by your historical, lyrical themes and mythology and stuff like that, too. And I'm a big Poe fan, so when I saw Red Death and heard it, I was like, is that a Poe reference to the fictitious Red Death, or is it altogether something different?
Yeah, Poe is just amazing, and for Mask of the Red Death, that's personally my favorite Poe story. So I wanted to kind of set it up where, because in the story, in the beginning, they're having like this party, because they think that they've escaped, the plague. So they're having this great party. So in the beginning, I just made this little kind of bass thing that was kind of like another kind of medieval dancey thing to kind of bring out that whole party thing. And then it went into this heavy metal, Judas Priest kind of thing. But as far as history and all that, I love history. I love mythology. I love literature. And I just think it goes great with heavy metal because it's all so epic.
Right. Absolutely. You know, and I've always bemoaned how often the bass gets buried on metal records, but given it's your native instrument, you not only made it equal in the mix and pushed it a little bit, you gave it many standout moments throughout the record.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I was not going to let happen, I was not going to let the bass get buried. And you're totally right. In, I'd say most heavy metal albums, the bass is just buried because what's happening is the guitar tone has just too much low end in it, and it just buries the bass. The bass has nowhere to breathe. So I was like, well, on this album, the bass is going to be loud and it's going to be heard. So I made the guitar more high-ended and a little thinner, as more like a classic Marshall sound.
Right.
And it worked out great. And then, I told the guy who was mixing it, Eric Rachel, I was like, let's try to do it like it's a 3-man power trio. So let's really put all the instruments really at the same kind of volume. So the bass was way out there. And I was like, since I'm a bass player and I'm just going to take as many bass solos as I can. So it was fun, man. I had a blast doing the whole thing.
Yeah, when I first heard the album, I sort of had that vibe. It's funny you say that. It's almost felt like a power trio sort of thing going on there, and it was really cool to hear. Now, I love the choice of Alan. I'm probably butcher his last name, but I love the choice of Alan Tecchio as the voice of Silent Assassins. How did you choose him?
And you spelled his name perfectly, by the way. Well, when I was looking for other people, I tried to keep the album as less people as possible because I just wanted to be run smooth. So I was like, well, it would be great to just have a singer who lives near my house. I live here in New Jersey, and I was like, rather than send the music to somebody in another country and he sends it back and we got to change this and that, let's just get a guy from New Jersey, who's really good, that I could sit there in the studio with him. I met Alan Tecchio about 5 years ago, and some of your listeners may know him from a band called Hades or a band called Watchtower. And I just loved his voice because he sang with so much power, but he was a singer. You know what I mean? He wasn't like an opera guy. I needed somebody with a real toughness, but with a good voice. And he was just perfect. And he loved the songs, and he was happy to do it. Just came into the studio and just knocked it right out. Total pro. And he'll definitely be on the next Silent Assassins as well.
What, you didn't want Bobby Blitz? He's right down the block.
He pretty much is. That would have been cool too. I will admit.
Yeah, well, you and Alan worked together in Seven Witches too, if memory serves. So, but yeah, he fits it really well, and I think it was a very nice choice. And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you: is the second album going to be essentially the same lineup, or are there going to be any surprises?
Well, yeah, I'm going to keep the same thing as far as the drums. It's just easier for Michael Romeo to program the drums. He does such a great job.
Right.
So that's the same. I'm going to play the rhythm guitar. Alan's going to sing. Now, I might try a different guitar player just for the heck of it. So I'm not sure about that yet. So I guess I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. It's a guitar player as far as lead guitar.
Right. Because you had Metal Mike and, of course, Mr. Romeo himself doing that on this last one. So.
Yeah, that was a really cool combination because their styles are so different. And so, yeah, I don't know. Maybe for the next record, and maybe get a different guitar player or two, just to change it up a little bit.
Nice. So, and I was going to ask you, do you see the second record as sounding significantly different in terms of growth, or do you think it'll sort of be more of a continuation?
Well, I think it's kind of yes to both those questions. It's definitely stylistically the same. It's straight ahead, in your face metal, but there are some things I'm going to try. So I wrote this song that's like 20 minutes long on it. And so I'm just going to try, I'm going to try that. If it's like a really long, epic song and, push the envelope and just see what happens.
Well, I had to wonder, because I know you've been writing, you've had a lifetime to write the first Silent Assassins album. I believe I read somewhere that, like, some of the ideas, like I think on The Progeny, went back to some ideas you had back when you were 18. So you've had a long time to put that album together. This album, is it sort of going to be a mix of stuff you've had hanging around for years, or is it going to be mostly new stuff that you've written since the first album?
Yeah, actually both. The 20-minute song is a song that I've written within the last, I'd say within the last year. The opening track is a song that I've written within the last year. And the other songs have all been written, I guess, maybe, well, some were written maybe in the early 90s, and then some were written maybe just a few years ago. So it's still kind of mixed up of songs, I guess, from, my whole history.
Nice. So it should be a good mix then. All right, so a couple more quick questions before we get out of here. Obviously, I can't overlook the fact that you're in the massive Symphony X, and you guys had one of the best albums of 2015. I believe it hit number 29 on our top 50 list.
Oh, thank you.
I talked to Mr. Romeo back when it came out about the album, but you get to see the album from a different perspective because he's the primary writer on it and everything. What are your thoughts on Underworld from your perspective?
Well, when the album was first really starting to come together and we could really kind of see what the songs were going to sound like, me personally, I was like, wow, I think we really have something great here. I think we have probably one of the best albums we've done in a really, really long time. I personally love the album. I think the songs are really solid. I love the flow of the album. It's one of those albums that it's like you can't just listen to one song. You have to like take the journey throughout the whole album. That's what I really like about it. And it's definitely one of my favorites. And I'm so happy to see that the press has been really good to us about it. And the fans have really taken to it. I think what I like most about the record is if you've never heard Symphony X, it's kind of like a summary of our history. Some songs kind of like touch on the older stuff and some kind of touch on the newer stuff. And I think it all works. And I think with this album, we really just focused on making every song as good as it can be without any filler.
I agree. That's sort of my perception of the whole thing too. I thought it was fantastic, and it really hit on all the eras of Symphony X. You mentioned it when you were talking about the album. I'm a big fan, and I'm pretty sure you are too, because we're both sort of old school guys. I'm so sick of this digital download, one song, two song thing. People aren't appreciating albums the way they used to, where they take in the whole album and get to know. I mean, you and I used to sit down with the albums. You remember Kiss Alive? You'd sit there and hold the whole album open, look at all the pictures, and just absorb it. You could even smell the thing,
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I mean, just like you say, back in the day, we would look at all the artwork, we'd stare at it, we'd look at the back cover, stare at it, we'd read all the liner notes, and just, it was part of the ritual. And it's so sad to see that people just, they look at music like just, a single here, a single there. And I just really think the fans these days are missing out if that's what they want to do. So, with this latest Symphony X album, we wanted to do an album for album lovers where, it's just from the beginning to the end, every song kind of flows into each other and it's just a journey throughout the whole album. And I think if someone just like picks a song here and there, I mean, they're really not getting what we're trying to do, So, but you're right. It's really sad that people are starting to think that way. And I just hope that, I'm hoping that the CDs and the albums, they don't become obsolete after a while.
Absolutely. Well, fortunately, the European fans are helping keep it alive. It's America where we're drowning a little bit, I think. But and the Silent Assassins and even the Mind Maze album that you did last year are both examples of albums that you can listen to from beginning to end without just looking for one song here or there. And it's just so good to hear so much great new hard rock and metal coming back again. It's just if we could get the American fans to appreciate it as a whole.
Exactly, dude.
Oh.
Totally right. I totally agree with you again. The Europeans, I mean, they're just loyal and true, and God love them, man. They're really keeping metal alive, and they like the packaging. I mean, they're even buying LPs really a lot now. But yeah, I mean, as far as even with the Silent Assassins record, I wanted to have definitely a flow to the album. Every song kind of have its own thing going on. Just, an album for album lovers.
Absolutely, and I think you definitely hit the mark, and I'm so excited for the second one. All right, couple of quick ones before we get out of here. You go out of your way to offer your services up to up-and-coming bands that you believe in. Are there 2 or 3 bands right now you really think people should keep an ear out for?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think what I've done recently. I just did I just played on an album. The band is called Them, Them, and it's very kind of King Diamond style.
Oh, nice.
But the songs are just fantastic, and I was really, it was an honor to play on it. Band coming out of New York. Their album should be out, I think, next year. Unfortunately, I can't go on the tour with them, but they're going to be opening for Halloween early next year on tour.
Excellent.
But this band was really, really killer. There's another band from Europe called Ureas, Ureas. It's a husband and wife team. Their album is out, and that's a really phenomenal album. A lot of cool styles going on there. So if any of your listeners get a chance, maybe they can check out some of these records.
Excellent. All right, so last question before we get out of here. You've got such a storied history. Can you give us 2 or 3 albums that sort of defined your musical path coming up?
Oh, that's an excellent question, dude. Songs that really, albums that really defined me, I guess, that defined my style. I would say from the band Exciter, Violence and Force, that was definitely one of them. Another one would be Screaming for Vengeance from Judas Priest. And I'd say another one would be Kill 'Em All from Metallica.
Awesome. Mike Lepond, Silent Assassins, and of course Symphony X, and all the other many projects that you're involved in. Thanks so much for the music and for taking the time to chat with us. We're really excited about the new album, and hopefully by this time next year, we'll have that new album if everything goes well with all the touring you're doing.
I think so as well. Yeah, look for the next Silent Assassins either by the end of this year or early next year.
You have a wonderful new year, and thanks for taking a few minutes.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the great questions.
Take care, Mike.